Socrates once said, the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. What started as our endeavor to connect and engage with the NASSCOM community way back in April with our NASSCOM VirtualFest Season 1 and now with Season 2, we have come a long way by connecting with over 30,000 people from across 3,000 companies across 24 countries. Today is the concluding session of our NASSCOM VirtualFest Season 2 journey. And for this very special session, our focus will be customer success and experience as the next growth engine. Moderating this session is Sreyssha George. Sreyssha is a partner and managing director at BCG. Since joining in 2008, she has lived and worked in both Australia and India. Most recently, she has been pivotal in setting up and leading BCG's Bangalore office. Sreyssha has extensive industry experience supporting senior leaders in technology and financial services industries. She has led a number of consulting projects with particular focus on large-scale change and digitization. Her focus is to go beyond strategy and make lasting change happen within the organization. A very warm welcome to her and all other speakers today. The floor is all yours. It's over to you, Sreyssha.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the session on a Friday evening. Much appreciate your participation here. We really do have a very engaging session on customer experience, very top of mind for most organizations that you will all be part of. And we are very privileged to have a very distinguished panel today of people from all parts of industries, from healthcare to technology to consumer brands, as well as a depth of experience ranging from the hotel industry all the way to insulators and fertilizers. So I'm really looking forward to an exciting conversation. What we all know for sure is when we look and talk to people across the C-suite or even most departments, customer experience is really top of mind. And with COVID really changing how we interact with companies, how we interact with brands, it's really also changed the way how, earlier, how we thought a good experience was. In a contactless world, it's actually changed how we think about customer experience. What we want to do today is really have an engaging discussion on how companies have started rethinking customer experience, how they've started measuring it. And what I'd like to do now is invite the panel onto the stage as well and give a quick introduction to each of the panelists, and then we will be on our way to an exciting discussion. Great. I think all the panelists are visible. Let me start with a few quick introductions. We have Sumit Sood here. He's a senior VP and head for the APAC region at GlobalLogic. Extensive experience, I think 2 decades now in the tech industry, starting with Virtusa and now with GlobalLogic. We have Namrita here, Namrita Mahindro. She currently is the Chief Digital Officer at Aditya Birla Group. She has a very, very diverse experience, and I'm hoping to tease out some of that today, starting all the way with the Tata Group and then moving across multiple industries before now landing in the Aditya Birla Group. What also fascinated me is she had the unique privilege of taking up this role during COVID. So we'll be curious to know how many people she's actually met in person in her new company as well. Moving on, we have Shaveta Wadhera, Chief Digital Officer at Hero Cycles. Again, comes with a wide range of experience and will really take us through some of the difference, in a B2C model as well as a B2B2C model, both quite relevant and different in terms of how we think about customer experience. Over the couple of decades, she's moved between many heavy industries like GE Rail, and worked at some of the fastest growing financial insurers as well. So really looking forward to hearing your stories today, Shweta. Finally, but mostly on top of all our minds today, I think from the hospital sector, healthcare sector, we have Mr. Arvind here. What we really want to do with you today, Arvind, is really tease out some of your experience with over 10 years at Apollo now. You would have witnessed a big tsunami of change for healthcare and digital. And I think this year especially has been tough, both with the pandemic, as well as, a lot of footfalls falling in certain categories, but at the same time, adding a lot of pressure in your industry as well. So really looking forward to hearing your views and how you're seeing this progressing. So let's get started. I would really love to start with just getting all your thoughts in terms of, some of the trends you've seen. And maybe I'll start with you, Shweta. The topic is large. Customer experience is, probably like one of those topics where you can spend hours. But wanted to really pick your brain on, some specific trends you've been seeing.
Sure. So I think with this change, the whole focus, even in a typical brick and mortar setup, has been that how do we digitally tap our customer, right? How do we understand our customer better? So, and how do we map their journeys? How do we look at, what is that our customer is expecting and sense that in a more online world than what we've been used to in the physical world. So a lot of time in last 6 months that we've said is in totally building the whole e-commerce channel internally within our organization, right? Mapping out our customer journeys, that how do we acquire our customers? How do we analyze their behaviors, the demographics, what are they going online for? And cycling actually has seen a major push during COVID, because it indicates health. It indicates being able to commute by maintaining the social distance in the, in nearby areas, right? So the cycling as a category has seen a huge push during the COVID. So now it's our challenge in these times to really understand the dynamics or demographics of these customers who are now coming out, right? Who are the key influencers for them? How do we focus, reach out? How do we personalize our offering? Are you looking for fitness? Are you looking for commute? Are you looking for just fun, right? Because a lot of the fun engagements that people had from a social gatherings perspective has all gone out. And cycling is one which offers probably fun and fitness together. So that's where a lot of our effort in last few weeks and months has really gone. Even technically enabling all of this. So it's been really, really interesting. And then, still it is like if you ship a cycle, then people do not really know how to assemble it, right? So we have to get to B2B2C, where people click and then collect from nearby so that they get what they want. And then we give them a nearest dealer or a distributor from where they can go collect the cycle, which is assembled or delivered to their doorstep. So there's been very interesting use cases we've been exploring. Yeah.
Great. No, that's great, Shweta. I will be one of those customers who got overexcited during this lockdown and bought a cycle as well. I think I haven't followed through and clicked on what I do next. So the cycle is very much still in the garage. Maybe just picking on the theme of, customer journey. And I think it's, many times we associate it with the direct consumer and not in the B2B context. Maybe Namrita, from your perspective, how has this impacted a sector like yours, where you're dealing more directly with dealers rather than an end consumer?
So, Sreyssha, I think that's a very interesting question. And I guess one of the mandates when I joined was really to turn from a manufacturing first organization to a customer centric organization. So I think I had that plus. Even as I walked into the role, this wasn't just before the pre-COVID era in Jan. But having said that, I think what has happened over the last 12 months is because over the last many decades, we've had dealers or retailers who are in numbers only a couple of hundreds. So the relationships have been very up close and personal. They've been very physical in the sense of face-to-face interactions, having those sort of everyone knowing everyone in terms of the industry, and that is the kind of interaction we've had. COVID forced upon us to really start thinking about, how we need to change the landscape. And so I think what I've seen in my previous experience, whether it was in the hospitality industry or the automotive industry or, other industries that I worked in, it was really bringing that entire experience to otherwise a very traditional environment in terms of the chemical industry, and saying, how do we take that entire experience from cradle to grave for our dealers, for our retailers online? So this actually saw a resurgence of websites and portals that we typically just consider as hygiene, and these became extremely important to be able to deliver services on demand, on in a seamless manner without having to have the physical connect. I think that's been sort of one area that we've looked at. If I move a little forward, I think a lot of our businesses are India based. However, they have global audiences in terms of customers. So if I look at our insulators business, we are the largest insulators producer globally. And so before an insulator is picked up by a client, it is inspected. And those inspections would typically happen physically, with people flying down to India to check the insulators at site, because it was a fairly complex product. And for us, over this COVID timeframe, it's really been about saying, how do we then take those inspections virtually, leveraging technologies like augmented reality, like computer vision, to be able to provide that same kind of real experience that one may have had from Germany or US or
I think we may have lost Namrita. Maybe we'll just keep going. I think very exciting note on AR, VR, and real cool stuff on what is happening in the market. So maybe Sumit, I will get you to chime in as the technologist building this for many companies. Will be great to hear what's really picking up.
Oh, absolutely. And I was making some feverish notes as Namrita was talking about, applying AR and VR technologies to do inspections. And we have seen a massive demand from our customer base as well during the COVID time for technologies like these. So we have seen actually two ends of the spectrum, right? On one end, we believe that customer experience has become a lot more personal. Right? COVID, especially the last few months, has forced us into our customers' homes. When we are having video calls with people, we are in their homes. Sometimes their children walk in, sometimes their spouses walk in. For so many of our customers where I never knew anything about their personal background or they didn't know about mine, we've actually started knowing a lot more about their families, their homes, and their interests. So that's been one end of the spectrum where it's brought things a lot closer together. The other end, as Namrita was saying, has been we are seeing a lot of demand. I'm sure Arvind would have seen a lot of procurement for PPE kits that was at that point in time. maybe you needed to train a lot of people into how to handle those well and how to dispose those well. And there would be need for a lot of AR and VR driven technology to enable those training programs, to enable new healthcare workers to be able to handle new equipment, ways of disposing that equipment. And that's been prevalent through and through multiple sectors, be it hospitality, be it manufacturing, be it supply chain. We have seen massive demands that have been happening around supply chain integration, because no longer do you want a lot of human intervention to get those sort of things done. That has had a ripple down of supply chain finance, and how do you enable that happening real time. So very, very interesting evolution over the last 2 to 3 years that has got dramatically accelerated in the last 6 months. So it has been an absolute joyride for technologists like us. We have felt like we are in the leaving the sad part of the pandemic aside, from a work perspective, we felt like we are inside a toy factory and playing with things and just making new things out for the real world.
Great. No, that's great to hear, Sumit. I think surely, I think we've all seen the memes of COVID was really that accelerator for the whole digital transformation journey. I think maybe on a slightly different note, Arvind, wanted to hear your thoughts. You've been, while all of us have been privileged to kind of be not really in the face of the pandemic, right? Quite privileged to work from home or stay safe. You've actually been in the face of it, fighting it for the last 9 months now. Just really wanted to hear your role as the tech and digital officer. How has this really played out?
Well, Sreyssha, very simply put, dealing with healthcare and dealing with lives. I think our mission was to provide surety in a completely ambiguous world. And there is a sense of fear, there is a sense of not knowing what it is. And at the same time, there is an expectation of 100% perfection. And obviously, that expectation is very clear. We are dealing with a human life, so nothing abnormal about the expectation. So making sure that digital tools are not only coming to the aid of the caregivers and the patients and their family members, but also for the entire organization as such. As Sumit was mentioning, the supply chain aspect of it, human resources themselves, keeping the entire organization, the clinical and the non-clinical staff motivated and pepped up in a rather difficult time. And so what we looked at is looking at all the realm of technologies that we have, provide that degree of surety. And that degree of surety comes with high degree of precision delivery. And obviously this means that uptime and all those nice things as you deal with services from the back office standpoint, but also its presentation layer. And putting in that realm of disruptive technologies so that we ensure that quality and the efficacy of the service, and here efficacy of service in healthcare comes with high degree of empathy. You just can't remove the human from the whole aspect of it. So putting all of that in perspective, making sure that all those are being made available not within the organization and the entire family of our organization that's serving the patients and the family members, but also keeping the family members comfortable. And then keeping the rest of the community and the government services and the services of society that go beyond just the one-to-one care that is going on, because it was a difficult situation and a healthcare institution has to do beyond just direct patient care. All of those, so it's, I would say it's a good use case for SMAC to be, completely used to its widest possible degree. Every aspect of the social mobile, all good aspects of analytics and trying to harness that power and bring that maturity back into several AI and ML algorithms, not only pandemic related, but also general healthcare related. It's all shut, but healthcare can't be shut. The care that a person needs still need. So how do we ensure that you use advanced learning algorithms to still help out? I think that was the whole aspect by which we looked at technology throughout the gamut of every life that we had to touch here.
Right. No, great, Arvind. And I think I'll circle back with you on some specific use cases, but great to hear the tech stack view of it, right? The end-to-end view. And maybe I'll get back to you, Shweta, on this one.
Sure.
One challenge as a lot of existing companies, and customer experience is not something we've started thinking about now, right?
Yeah.
Over the years, we've plopped in many versions of CRMs and things on top of it. So how do you actually measure that, the investment is returning the, the right kind of returns? Are customers actually benefiting from all of the investment on digital and technology?
Yeah, look, you ask a very, very relevant question, right? And that is something, has been a constant push that before we make these investments, right? Business, and these are huge investments. So business needs ROI. So in case of when we are building or when we are spending, right, to be able to acquire customer or improve the customer journey or set up a whole e-commerce channel like I was talking about a while back, right? There, I thought, finding the investment and finding the true business case is still relatively, we found, was easier in the sense that since it's a distribution channel, right? So it is actually something that's going to hit your top line direct if you're able to acquire customers, right? And for a brick and mortar organization like that of ours, we were not really acquiring customers online. So it's a new channel. So even if I go conservative and say I acquire X thousand customers per month, right? And I'm able to then translate that to a sale. So then the GC contributed to that through a sale, right? Is a direct top line impact that I could really, put in front of my organization, right? Now, but what happens is that there is a thought that what if this sale would have any which ways happened through dealer, right? Mm-hmm. And are we cutting out on a pie which a dealer would have sold and now you're selling it online? So dealer might just say that I have lost that much market share. So are we really pushing the envelope and are we really enlarging the market, or it is just the customer shifting from channel A to channel B, and hence it is not really a true new business, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where it starts getting challenging, right? That's where it gets very difficult to say that is it the same customer who would have come in to a nearest dealer and picked up a cycle or versus picking it up online. So we made a lot of assumptions. We made, 40, 60, some fulfilled through dealers. So a lot of those scenario building happened based on which we sort of then created the top line impacts that would be, happening because of this, or at least we are avoiding loss of sales, right? So, so that was another thing that came handy. But yeah, I mean, that's a real problem. So those were 2-3 different things we did to be able to justify investments in the customer space. Though I'm still struggling to justify investments, which is not the topic of this conversation, but since I'm responsible for that as well, which is on the supply chain side, which is on the internal process efficiency side. Those are bottom line, but very difficult to justify that there is a real bottom line impact there, right? And we find it difficult. But at least I think the customer side is relatively provable in the genre of, yeah.
Right. No, that's great. I think some linkage to a clean number. I think we'll have a lot of audience members here who would be coming from a range of industries. And Sumit, maybe, keen to hear your thoughts, given you're building this technology for a large number of industries and customers. Are there different ways to think about the return on investment on customer experience?
Oh, absolutely. And Shweta, you hit the nail on the head when you said, right, hey, am I just shifting this from channel A to channel B? Or really am I growing the pie? At GlobalLogic, we love to talk about this as squeezing the lemon versus growing the watermelon, right? What are you really getting at? And if you look at different sectors in a growing marketplace, I think growth would be a good way to look at returns from customer personalization or digital channels. But there is another way to look at it. How much attrition have you stopped? Right? If you take what's happening with the Khan's Academies of the world, or what Byju's is doing in India, what does that do to traditional media, publishing, and education sector? And when we work with customers, we work on both of these, right? How much on the growth sectors, how much growth are we able to accelerate? On sectors where there is competition that's emerging, and the joke is two guys in a link and they're a competition. Two guys or two girls in a link and suddenly there is competition. How much are you able to reduce or compress the rate of decay of the loss that your firm's facing? Because you got to prevent attrition before you can counterattack the marketplace and get your share back. So Sreyssha, we look across both of these, and when we help our client executives build their digital cases, Shweta, sales pitch, we'd love to help you build some of your business cases if you'd like us to. But jokes apart, when we work with our clients, we really look at all of these dimensions, because we look at not just that sector. We have to look at related or even totally unrelated sectors, but which might have similar customer experiences or demand trends emerging. And you'd be surprised at the correlation between customer expectation in the medtech world, right? With a sleep apnea device as an example, how the customer wants to experience that device in a digital era is very, very similar to how a kid wants to go and create his or her own burger. And these are very wide ends of the spectrum, but when you really look at some of the design and the study parts of it, you find some amazing correlations with what the customers want. And that's what we go back to. We end up having lots of discussions with our clients on, and we're privileged. We work across so many different sectors. We get to learn and really immerse ourselves, but it's just amazing what's happening. At a summary level, it is as much about growth as it is about preventing attrition, and really stopping to benchmark yourselves from within your own industry, but really look at adjacencies all across and see what's the best of breed that you can work with.
Great. Now, I think, Sumit, I think one of the trends that I think the last couple of years have shown us is the customers are not anymore thinking that, oh, because you are selling me insulator, you can be slightly, less focused on my experience versus you are selling me burgers. So, you act differently, and with Google, I will interact differently, right? The expectations are kind of evening out. I picked up the thread on medtech and some of that sort of acceleration, Arvind, and just curious to hear, especially in healthcare, there's just so much happening, smart technology, all of us starting to wear all these wearables. How do you actually start thinking about where to invest? Because like you said, and I think a powerful note you left when we had a chat before this was to say yours is not a B2B or a B2C, right? Yours is a B2 life, really working with human beings. Just very curious to understand, how do you think about technology, but just really keep, life at the core of it?
I think our focus all the time in healthcare is keep the patient in the center of our universe. So all of healthcare exists because there's a patient and the patient needs to be serviced. So when we start building the concentric circles around the center of our universe, I think we'll know where our process elements are weak. And what do we mean by process elements in healthcare? It's always going to be continuum of care. Continuum of care, quality, ensuring that there are no errors in the process, ensuring that there is transparency in the process, and at the same time, it is well educated, ensuring that it brings in the right level of expertise. And with healthcare, what do I mean by right level of expertise? This is where technology can come in. The patient might be, let's say, in Chennai, and we might have a MRI of the spine taken, and the expert could be somewhere in Chandigarh or somewhere staying in Calcutta. We can still get all of them to look at the patient in a single discussion, and then work out the treatment protocol. So you don't need to waste time in bringing expertise in. And sometimes it may not even be outside the city. With cities getting so populated with traffic, you can get people to start looking at it from their mobile phones by giving them the right quantum of alerts and reminders. So you're looking at basically solving all the bottlenecks of process inefficiency. And in the bargain, making sure that at every process point, you're bringing nothing but perfection into place, perfection and precision delivery. I think once you start looking at it this way, this whole aspect of your question, where do you invest, where do you focus on, that needs to be there. The second aspect with healthcare, and I won't even necessarily say healthcare, but I'm sure it's true with any service industry, is making sure that all technology that we invest is well supported. Now, and the third aspect is in terms of, as an organization, is this something that is economically viable and translates over time? It's not just some innovation that is done as a showcase for a short instant of time. This is not that. It's not a pilot initiative. Can it be made the DNA of the organization? That means the breadth of it. Can it go through the volumes? And with Indian healthcare, your volumes are in millions. So can it stand that test of time? Stand it test of time, not just as a technology, but also as an enabling process, also with all the people involved in it. I think all these questions are very, very critical when we are looking at where to invest and whether then that investment is translating return on investment, not just as economics, but return on investment in terms of every outcome that comes with healthcare. Many of them are intangible, cannot be measured in physical numbers, but it contributes to the overall experience of healthcare, both the provider side and the consumer side. Both are equally to be taken care of. I think all these have to be very critically looked at. And then making sure that your nature of downtimes, the nature of errors, the nature of when I call downtime, I don't mean it from an infrastructural standpoint, I mean it from a non-availability of a service. Making sure that that's almost negligible, because again, it's a 24/7 omnipresent service that we are looking at, which is what we expect out of healthcare. There's nothing like day, there's nothing like night, there's nothing like a wee hour and all that. Healthcare needs can come at any point. So how do we make sure that we are agile and we are attentive and we are receptive 24/7, 365, not losing a wee bit of quality and efficiency? I think those are fundamental questions when we look at investments, looking at returns on investment and actually measuring success. Return on investment, measuring success so that you're able to replicate and make it the DNA of the organization. That's really how we see this whole aspect.
Great. No, Arvind, I can really see the passion with which you're, really keeping the patient at the center. I think one thing I took away is, there's always this question about a fad versus a technology that can scale or a trend that can scale, which is, one you were referring to. And Namrita will be keen to, many of the examples you're giving are very fresh and new, right? Something that has happened in the last couple of months. Keen to understand, how much of this do you think is scalable and really going to stay, hopefully in, a few months or a year in a post-COVID era?
I think that's a question that we all are struggling with, because, consumer behavior has changed. And I don't think anybody today has a playbook for how to deal with this situation. And what are those trends which are here to stay and which are those which are going to go away? But I think if I go back to, when digital transformation really started taking roots in India almost about a decade back, and if you start looking at, the various phases over there, I think there are 2 or 3 things which came to mind. One was, the initial phase where you were looking at a lot of organizations were starting from a CX first perspective. Then you moved into that phase, where you started saying, okay, go beyond CX. And, there are a lot of benefits from a process efficiency point of view, from an operational excellence point of view. And that became sort of the second phase. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been about a lot of scale. But I think along with the scale, what has happened is that over the last 3 to 5 years, people have started looking at new business models. Even the traditional companies or groups, so to speak, are looking at new business models a lot more seriously than they've ever looked at before. And so I think what the pandemic has done is it's really, segregated the world into two sorts of companies: those who have digital at their core and those who do not have digital at their core. And digital at the core is something that can be embraced by a legacy company also. It's just, working on changing the DNA. So when you say, what are the things which are going to be here to stay? I think some of those new business models which are oriented towards value creation are going to be here to stay. So to give you one example for our fertilizer business, I think we've had a pivot which had started happening in the pre-COVID era. It got accelerated, which was really we were selling fertilizers to our customers. But at the end of the day, buying a fertilizer is not what the farmer is interested in. What he's interested in is actually understanding, can he increase his yield or not? And so we looked at a new business model where we said, can we partner with with the farmer and enable, again, using technology to figure out what is the quality of the soil. What kind of information do they have which goes beyond, using conversational bots, etc., which give the right information to these farmers as opposed to just giving them, information which is from their closed circuit of friends. Looking at using other technologies to help them do better decision making on what to grow, when to grow, what kind of pesticides, fertilizers, etc. they need. And that's been sort of a shift in terms of looking at providing a solution versus providing a product. And I think that outcome-based approach is here to stay. So that's just one example of, things which are here to stay. But I think we're in that journey of identifying more of those themes which are here to stay, as opposed to just being fads that will, disappear or dissipate with as we return to some sort of normalcy in the next year or two.
Yeah, no, thanks, Namrita. I think all of us are wondering when that day will come. I think I heard quite a strong view of that outcome focus from how you were explaining, on the trends that will stay. And Shweta, keen to hear, as you are trying these multiple channels, between the direct to consumer, your dealers. How are you making sure that the feedback is flowing back into the strategy?
So you mean the feedback from the dealers, from our end customers?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So right now, like I said, when I was talking about the e-commerce being a channel, I was also talking about the whole the focus on the lead management and the customer relationship management. Again, traditionally, while I have done this like a decade back as well, but for our organization, or specifically in a more traditional setup, this has not been in place, and that's exactly what we are laying focus on. That let's connect with our customer, let's understand what they are saying, and let's put in the proper focus to understand and hear out what my customers using. So I mean, talking about different industries. We started small POCs during this, right? So we are really seeing, now gyms we never thought was a compete to us, right? But gyms not working was one of the key reasons because of which Cycle was selling, right? Because people use Cycle for fitness and gyms not being functioning for 6 to 8 months, right? So that way, trying to hear out our customers, trying to figure out those channels and rolling out, very rudimentary, simple, on-the-go kind of solutions so that whatever our dealers are saying or hearing can really come to us. And then accordingly, we figure out that which is the customer to go after, what kind of products should we be putting and how should really be positioning them when we're doing the digital marketing for these products, right? So during the COVID time, there's so many fitness-focused cycles and bikes we launched out, right? Because that's where we could sense and pulse that that's what our customers really, that's where the new segment is coming from, who's looking at cycle in a very different way than how it's been traditionally looked at, right? So some of those initiatives has helped Sreyssha, but we have a long way to go. So now we're looking at with some early benefits or early case of the success that we've had. Now we're looking at how can we make it more omni-channel, how can we scale it across our 2,500 different sale points, right? And all our entire sales force is able to get access to it. And we are feeding on this information, interpreting, analyzing, and looking at what kind of products will make sense.
Right. Perfect. We're actually starting to get a lot of questions from the audience as well. So maybe I'll pick up a few that is coming up. One question that's coming up is, the discussion we had on growing the pie versus really thinking about some of the channels getting accelerated. What's the best way to think about it? I think, do you invest in one or the other? Very keen to get, maybe Shweta, you can add here, and then I'll move on to the others.
Sure. So it's a tricky one, right? So we really went by assumptions and certain rules of the game, and another thing that we kept pretty core at is that the dealer is core to us, and we did not want at any point in time dealer to feel that it's their share of business that's going to a different channel and hence their So we sort of integrated dealer with our e-commerce strategy by saying so there is an option of B2B2C wherein people can click and collect from a dealer. So if they are going and collecting from the dealer retains some share of the margin, right?
Right.
So that's how we integrated dealer to our plan of launching the channel. But a lot of it also happened direct, right? And that takes a lot of communication, that takes a lot of interaction and making them understand that it's also a way to not let our customer attrite and go away to to the products which are then available in a similar mode, right?
Got it.
So those kind of communication and keeping them integrated as part of this, because they will also get some percentage of their customer acquisition through this, right? So with both the strategies playing is really how we played this. But I'm sure there are very many ways to really go about it. Yeah?
Absolutely. And on a related note, Namrita, given you've seen the industry evolve as well, the question is, what are you seeing in terms of evolution of measuring customer experience? What's really been the change over the years?
I think, Sreyssha, when you look at how do you measure, there are, of course, a lot of measures out there. But at the end of the day, whether you're looking at an NPS score or, you're looking at a customer CSAT score, or whether you're looking at those other scores, I think this has to eventually translate into, how does it reflect in terms of your brand? And that is intangible to some extent, but what is it doing to your brand value, and what is it doing to your employee? And I think both of them, the external and the internal impact, are extremely important. So when you start looking at those measures, are your employees empowered enough to make that difference in your customer's life? And are you actually being able to create that cultural shift where everybody from, if I take the hospitality industry, which naturally lends itself, but are you taking everybody from the doorman to the housekeeper to everybody else from A to Z? Or if you take the automotive industry, are you taking everybody? The OEM actually does not have any connect, or very limited connect with the end consumer. It's been through the dealer. But can you actually then start creating those connects, and can you start thinking and feeling for the customer? So it's really about everybody owning the customer, as opposed to sales or marketing or customer experience as a team or as a function owning it. So when the DNA of the organization changes, I think that from an employee or from a culture of an organization is extremely important. That would be a metric worth measuring. And externally, what does it do to your brand? Because business can come from many places, but it's what is it doing to your brand, value, which really makes that difference in terms of metrics, personally for me. So those are the two areas I would look at.
Yeah, no, great. I think measuring your brand perception is a great point, Namrita. Just curious, maybe Sumit, we spoke a lot about like interacting directly with the customer, right? But in your field, you're actually selling to other businesses, and with all of the no walking down corridors and no dinners and coffees and teas, how has that experience changed from a selling perspective to your customer?
Well, we have had to eat our own cooking. But jokes apart, it's been, looking at what suddenly happened over the last 8 to 10 months, and what sort of additional challenges it was forcing on businesses worldwide, and not everybody could come to a physical event and interact with experts and figure out what they needed for their business. Was there any leverage that technology could provide to them? We have actually gone on and created a platform called GlobalLogic Tao that allows enterprises to interact with a set of experts. It starts with a very, very simplified mobile questionnaire. And from there on, you can go to a full-length advisory session with experts, to actually a blueprinting session, to really engaging with us. Again, on the extremes of, for a small and medium business, swiping their credit card, for a mini sort of a pod sort of an engagement, to we have had a couple of Fortune 500s who have actually come into us via that platform and really kicked off massively large digital transformation engagements from there. So what we were thinking as, hey, this is a absolute personal, in-person part of our business or customer dealing. In fact, we have ourselves been very surprised with what we've been able to do via alternate channels. So I do expect this to continue to strengthen more, to gain more momentum. And I expect us to evolve this a lot more as well. Today, it is still, I would say, rudimentary digital. It is basic audio, video, mobile, etc., etc. Yes, it changes the experience, but how do I take it into a more secure, hyper collaborative sort of a platform? Right? How do I get a panel of 20 or 30 experts brainstorming across design, across engineering, across materials, and whiteboarding, crafting solutions? How do you make a global sort of a collaboration happen in the virtual world? So it's been a very, very interesting acceleration, as I mentioned, and I see this happening across businesses, not just for us as a B2B. When I look at some of our customers, and I look at some of our customers in the manufacturing world, some very similar situations like yours, Shweta, or yours, Namrita, where you're distributing via various channels, distributed channels. You launch a new product, you need those distributors to understand it. You are no longer bringing them into a nice seminar or a 2-day getaway and explaining the product to them. Now you need them to understand it. Now you need their reps to be able to explain it to further customers. You need their mechanics to be able to repair them. You need their installation to happen. I'm sure the insulators, that the virtual inspections that Namrita was talking about, I'm sure there was training that was needed for how do they get deployed. And seeing this acceleration across B2B of leveraging this more and more. I mean, with a very large locomotive manufacturer in the US, we have actually very rapidly assembled an AR/VR driven platform where it trains a mechanic on the go, can actually take 3D videos of that locomotive. Things go back and figure out what parts needed, either that part's 3D printed or that part's shipped out. There's an instructional video that comes out as to how that part's going to go in. So it's been a fun ride. So B2B has changed in my mind forever. It is going to get a lot more augmented with digital presence and digital solutions or enablers around just flying over and assembling in a place and trying to do things.
Yeah, no, great, Sumit. And I think one thread there is around the training of the employees as well, right? The upgradation. And Arvind, especially in the healthcare setup, we typically think of, only the doctors, the nurses, but I'm sure you're also seeing some talent mix evolving as, technology becomes more pervasive.
Absolutely. You're looking at all aspects of the organization. So you've got a huge supply chain group, you've got a huge human resources group, you've got obviously a good group doing the financials of it. And then not only in the core healthcare sector, you have the ancillary sector that is supporting the core health professionals. So you're looking at talent across all of them, and all levels of talent need to be cross-trained also. So it's, how do you deal, even if you're, let's say you are a purchase manager, there's a manner in which you're going to be dealing with a certain healthcare purchase, and certain questions or connotations could be very blunt, which may not go well in the, in the healthcare sectors. So how do you make sure that everybody's got, obviously the core skills, I'm less worried about it because that's what everybody's prime job responsibilities. How do you get them into understanding the rest of the ecosystem, and how do you bring that soft skill training into it? Because ultimately you're dealing with a very difficult situation. You really can't, even laugh around loudly, which maybe you may think you're being funny, but not definitely in a hospital corridor. So things like that have to be handled with a lot of maturity. At the same time, that setting need not be gloomy, and it's a workplace, and you can enjoy what you're doing with a good sense of humor and a good sense of happiness and pride in what you're doing. I think that well-groomed maturity of all of it, and also a very important aspect of training and skill development is also making sure that people don't take home that difficult aspects of what they are dealing with in their day-to-day. So how do we make sure that each person is taken care of in his completeness, and how do we make sure that he connects with his family? So it's training for us is not just with the string, and we don't call anybody an employee, we call everybody a family member. And how do we ensure that all of that is well done? And then giving everybody that, and with the industry changing, with healthcare has been probably the tortoise on the digital journey as it relates to all the other sectors. How do we make sure that all our members are not feeling left out when suddenly you say that, my next status review is going to be on Microsoft Teams, and definitely a few of them are going to feel like, oh, is this my place? Am I out of place? Is somebody in IT taking over my job? Your fears are going to be paramount. How do we make sure that all of that is there? So always train them on their core, on the newer skills that are coming in healthcare with the core personnel, and every sector around them. How do we ensure that they are augmented in their core and they are augmented towards the rest of the ecosystem? So always the focus is both and equally. That way we ensure that the system is taken care of.
Yeah. No, very relevant points, Arvind. I think, in a lot of times, I think you touched upon a very nuanced view, right? A lot of times we are all trying to transform, put in the latest technology, but the nuance of what you said, are people getting left behind? Are people really feeling anxious with all of these new introductions? It's just so important to keep top of mind. That was a very, at least for me, very engaging discussion. And thank you for really opening up with some great stories. We do have a couple of minutes, and I thought we could do a rapid fire and leave all our audiences with some tidbits that they can actually take away from here. So if you guys are ready to play, I'll just shoot a few questions. Couple of words, nothing longer than that. Just very curious to hear, some interesting thoughts from you as we finish. So maybe, we can go Shweta, Namrita, Sumit, and Arvind. That's how I see you in front of me. So maybe the first question then, what's that one company that comes to mind when you think ultimate customer experience?
Okay, that's already beyond the rapid fire time. Amazon?
Great.
Yeah.
Namrita?
I think in the pre-COVID era, it was Disney. In the post-COVID era, for me, it's been Zoom and Teams. I mean, Microsoft with the products. It's more about the products than, the companies. It's interesting I'm saying that, but yeah, it's been that way. Yeah.
Got it. Sumit?
I would say Amazon as well. I think they just do an amazing job of customer experience.
Arvind?
Disney World before COVID, after COVID, and anytime.
Okay, we did bring out the kid in Arvind on that question. Not to put Shweta on the spot each time, I'm going to start with Sumit this time. What is the one tech you've come across which you think will really revolutionize experience as we know it?
Blockchain, absolutely
Okay.
blockchain, because I would say digital ledgers, because the more we are spending time, effort, energy, and transactions online, the more trust becomes more and more important in the digital world. And digital ledgers are absolutely necessary to guarantee that trust, whether in their current form or in an evolved form. But I see this catching up very rapidly in the next couple of years.
Got it. Namrita?
I would have to second that. I think it's trust and transparency, because the era we are living in is really going to be about more trust, more transparency, and therefore I think blockchain is going to be setting the precedence for the years to come in terms of the next wave of the internet in that sense.
Right. Arvind?
Design thinking and trying to put 3-dimension into every 2-dimensional aspect of a problem statement.
Shaveta?
For manufacturing, I would say IoT plus AR is what we really get us close to our machines. Help us know them better.
Very fair, very fair. We spoke a lot today, I think, about like the fun stuff. What's the one challenge or downside of all of this digital and technology that you're seeing? Maybe Arvind, you can go first.
Fear of the unknown and gossip of the grapevine.
Okay, that was deep. Okay. And Namrita?
I think it's the human connect that is where I think most people have felt that missing in a big way, and that is the fear that while technology is supposed to bring us closer in many senses, but it's actually also taking us further away in a lot of ways. So especially with the next gen that you see, I think that's a classic example. Their comfort or discomfort with technology versus ours in this pandemic, I think, has been very revealing, if I may put it that way.
Got it. Sumit?
Fear of change, the human turf war, right? This is how I've always done it. Changing is ridiculous. You guys don't understand it, so let's not do it. And also the wise man and the elephant, right? Everybody sees it their own way. The rope versus the trunk. So I think that's the biggest challenge. Technology is easy.
Yeah. Shweta?
To me, I think the challenge that technology faces is that in this world of Internet of Things and AI, is human begun to think, right? Is human yet another thing on internet, right? That's how I summarize it. I think that's the bigger challenge.
Excellent. Thank you, team. I think, we ended on that perfect note of human belonging, with all of the technology and digital, but really coming back and connecting. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts today. We've been very privileged to have such a diverse panel here and deeply connected with people and consumer at the center, and some great takeaways. And I'm surely going to say, squeeze the lemon versus grow the watermelon. I mean, was that it, Sumit?
Yeah, you got it right, Sreyssha.
But on a much more serious note, I think, Arvind's point about people really being in the center and, life really mattering. And I think Shweta and Namrita brought it home by saying, belonging and feeling connected is critical. So thank you very much. Incredibly privileged to moderate the session. I will hand over to Sandeep from here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sreyssha, Sumit, Namrita, Shweta, Arvind. That was really an interesting conversation, and we couldn't have asked for a better conclusion for our second edition. Thank you all so much. I'm sure the audience enjoyed every minute and every bit of this conversation. And with this, we have come to the end of our VirtualFest Season 2. I thank each one of you, the participants, for your unstinted support in this platform throughout the season. We have continued to receive your constant feedback and overwhelming response, for which I am ever so grateful. I also thank our sponsors, Salesforce, Microsoft, and GlobalLogic for reposing their faith in this product and supporting us. The last couple of weeks, we have been receiving emails and calls asking us to continue with VirtualFest. Rest assured, we will be back with season 3 very soon. Until then, we have a suite of products lined up for you, including our own flagship event, NTLF, scheduled in February 2021. You can view the list of upcoming events shortly after I finish. So continue to stay tuned in and look forward to meeting you soon virtually at our events. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye for now.